Good evening once again. Welcome to sunny Horizon City for those of you who made the drive from the far away. Those of you who live close by, thank you for coming. It's awesome to see you. Actually, well, it's awesome to see you no matter where you came from. And of course, I've got to extend my welcome, no matter whether you are here or joining us on our live stream. It's always good to, I guess, quote unquote, see you. Keep in mind that when you join us, we can see you. Creepy, huh? I mean, no, it's wonderful. It's a wonderful blessing that we can get to see how many people are joining us from all over the place. It's a blessing to us, and hopefully we are a blessing to you. Before we go any further, let's go ahead and stand and get started in a word of prayer. I know I need prayer. I don't know if you need prayer. If you think you don't need prayer, you should probably pray about that. It's my favorite joke. Father, we thank you and praise you for everything you've done, everything you've given us, everything you've shown us. We thank you for this day, for the opportunity to be able to gather together as a family, as a body, and just sing your praises, to lift everything that we have up and just throw it down at your feet. Father, tonight we ask that you would bless us, that you would teach us, that you would show us where we need to go. Father, that you would place us back on your path, that you would open up your word for us to see and learn from. Father, we love you, we praise you, we thank you, we glorify your name. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, here we go. Come set your rule and reign in our hearts again. Increase in us, we pray. Unveil while we're made. Come set our hearts ablaze with hope, like wildfire in our very souls. Holy Spirit, come, invade us now. And we are your church, and we need your power in us. We seek your kingdom first. We hunger and we thirst. Refuse to waste our lives, for you're our joy and prize. To see the captive hearts released, the hurt, the sick, the poor at peace. We lay down our lives for heaven's call. And we are your church, and we revive this earth. Build your kingdom here. Let the darkness fear. Show your mighty hand. Heal our streets and land. Set your church on fire. Bring this nation back. Change the atmosphere. Build your kingdom here. They pray. Unleash your kingdom's power, reaching the near and far. No force of hell can stop your beauty. beauty changing hearts. You made us for much more than this. Awake the kingdom seed in us. Fill us with the strength and love of Christ. Oh, we are your church, and we are the home on earth. Build your kingdom here. Let the darkness fear. Show your mighty hand. Heal our streets and land. Set your church on fire. Win this nation back. Change the atmosphere. Build your kingdom here. We pray. Amen. Build your kingdom here. Let the darkness fear. Show your mighty hand. Heal our streets and land. Set your church on fire. When this nation back. Change the atmosphere. Build your kingdom here. And thank you, Father. Praise you. Thank you, Lord. The day is brighter here with you. The night is lighter than its hue. What lead me to believe, which leads me to believe that you make everything glorious, and you make everything glorious. Yeah, you make everything glorious, and I am yours. What does that make me? Are small, but they have seen the beauty of enormous things, which leads me to believe there's light enough to see. Oh, that you make everything glorious, and you make everything glorious, and you make everything glorious, and I am yours. From glory to glory, you are glorious, you are glorious. From glory to glory, you are glorious, you are glorious. Which leads me to believe why I can believe. And you make everything glorious, and you make everything glorious. Oh, yeah, you make everything glorious, and I am yours. And you make everything glorious, Father, yes, you make everything glorious. Jesus, yeah, you make everything glorious, and I am yours. From glory to glory, from glory to glory, you are glorious, you are glorious, you are glorious, you are glorious. What does that make me? 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 We worship the God who was. We worship the God who is. We worship the God who evermore will be. He opened the prison doors. He parted the raging sea. My God, He holds the victory. Yeah. There's joy in the house of the Lord. There's joy in the house of the Lord today. And we won't be quiet. We shout out your praise. There's joy in the house of the Lord. Our God is surely in this place. We won't be quiet. We shout out your praise. We shout out your praise. We worship the God who heals. We sing to the God who heals. We sing to the God who always makes a way. 'Cause He hung upon that cross and He rose up from that grave. My God, still rolling stones away. There's joy in the house of the Lord. There's joy in the house of the Lord today. And we won't be quiet. We shout out your praise. There's joy in the house of the Lord. Our God is surely in this place. And we won't be quiet. We shout out your praise. We shout out your praise. We were the beggars, now we're royalty. We were the prisoners, now we're running free. We were forgiven, respected, redeemed by His grace. Let the house of the Lord sing praise. We were the beggars, now we're royalty. We were the prisoners, now we're running free. We were forgiven, accepted, redeemed by His grace. Let the house of the Lord sing praise. today, and we won't be quiet. If we shout out your praise, head for the house of the Lord. Our God is surely in this place. We won't be quiet. We shout out your praise, head for the house of the Lord. Joy in the house of the Lord today, and we won't be quiet. We shout out your praise, head for in the house of the Lord. Our God is surely in this place. We won't be quiet. We shout out your praise. We shout out your praise. We shout out your praise. Father, once again, we thank you, we praise you for being here with us, for standing shoulder to shoulder, for living with us as a father, as a redeemer, as a savior. Father, you've never seen fit to just stand off and watch us live, watch us fail. But instead you stand close. You stand so close that the Bible says that you speak in a soft, quiet voice. Father, we thank you for speaking to us, for loving us. Father, we thank you, we praise you. The splendor of a king, clothed in majesty. Let all the earth rejoice, let all the earth rejoice. He wraps himself in light, and darkness tries to hide, and trembles at his voice, and trembles at his voice. How great is our God, sing with me, how great is our God, and all will see how great is our God. Age to age he stands, and time is in his hands, beginning and the end, beginning and the end. The God that free and one, Father, Spirit, and Son, the Lion and the Lamb, the Lion and the Lamb. How great is our God, oh sing with me, how great is our God, and all will see how great is our God, how great God. Oh, sing with me, how great is our God, and all will see how great is our God. Oh, he's the name above all names, worthy of all praise, and my heart will sing how great is our God. Oh, he's the name above all names, and worthy of all praise, and my heart will sing how great is our God. How great is our God. Oh, sing with me, how great is our God, and all will see how great is our God. How great is our God. Oh, sing with me, how great is our God, and I will see how great is our God. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Holy, holy is He. Sing a new song to Him who sits on heaven's mercy seat. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Holy, holy is He. Sing a new song to Him who sits on heaven's mercy seat. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come. All creation I sing praise to the King of Kings. You are my everything, and I will adore you. Oh, will adore you. Oh, golden rainbows of living color, lightning, rolls of thunder. Blessing and honor, strength and glory and power be to you, the only wise King. Yeah. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come. Oh, in all creation I sing praise to the King of Kings. You are my everything, and I will adore you. Filled with wonder, awestruck wonder at the mention of your name. Jesus, your name is power, breath and living water, heart of mother and man's array. Oh, holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come. Oh, with all creation I sing praise to the King of Kings. You are my everything, and I will adore you. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come. Oh, and all creation I sing praise to the King of Kings. You are my everything, and I will adore you. Father, we adore you. We praise you. Once again, Father, we lay everything down at your feet, all of our pride, all of our stubbornness, Father, and we just, this morning, we give you our full concentration, our full devotion. Lord, we ask that you would open our hearts and minds, that the seed of your word would be planted deep, that it would grow, that it would flower and fruit. Father, we love you. We praise you. We need you. In Jesus' name, amen.
This time we're going to release the children. They're going to go off to Children's Church. They're going to be able to go and enjoy learning all about God and his word at their age level, where they get all their wiggles out. The youth are also going to go off into the youth room and see if they notice anything different in that room, or if they just think it's all still the same. There was some work done in there. We'll see if they notice it. And then all the adults, you guys are going to have to just kind of like hang out here. You got to get your wiggles out in here. Well, during this week, I've been busy putting together a lot of different things. There's a lot of infrastructure that had to be done, and so I found myself running out of time to study and prepare. And I know that's like the saying, right? You got one job, dude. But we also had to get the other stuff working, and nonetheless, I'm blessed that I have people that I can call on to come and teach. We have wonderful teachers here at this church that are able to teach, but I was particularly blessed because I invited Pastor Dwayne from Calvary Chapel Three Crosses all the way out in Las Cruces, so you know he drove a long way to get here today. And he's just been a friend for many years. You know, I actually went out to his church when he planted it, and that's when I was part of a puppet ministry. So I don't know if you guys ever knew that about me, but I used to do puppets. And so Dwayne has agreed to come and teach for me tonight, and I'm blessed to have him. And if you guys would give him a welcome and whatnot, I'm sure he's got a wonderful word from the Lord for us all tonight.
Go. Now you can hear me, huh? All right. Well, as Mike said, he called me, gave me plenty of time to get ready. And as I looked and thought and prayed a little bit about what to teach, and as you guys have made this move, I thought about building. What would be a perfect thing? Nehemiah. So if you guys want to turn to Nehemiah chapter 3, working together in unity. And I really believe God's going to bless this church. It's a bold step in faith and a beautiful place. You know, I did know Mike when he was younger. I don't want to get too far into that, the puppet thing, which is really cool. Actually, we built a puppets thing because of him. Time has flown so fast. The only thing I want to ask you, do we look anything alike? What do you think? No. Not at all. I'm much better looking than him. I hate to say it out loud. But we're up there at the conference, and he got through teaching, and I was walking around, and some of these guys from Los Lunas said, "Hey, great teaching." I'm like, "Thank you." I said a few more. I don't know how I joke around too much. I said, that's kind of racist, because all those white boys look alike. I said, he has a beard. It wasn't even me. But I said, thank you for appreciating that teaching. So that was so funny. I was like, man. But the only thing about Mike, though, I think, I don't know how they get us mixed up, because he's such an intellectual teacher. You'll find out I can't say big words, so I'm going to have a lot of, in Nehemiah, there's a lot of names, which I don't really appreciate at all. So I'm going to say them like I know them, which I don't, as you can appreciate it. But mainly it's about what is God trying to teach us here. And working together in unity. And I think it's perfect for you as a church, as God has brought you here. Be faithful. At the beginning, as you go through, you should go back and read Nehemiah. The struggle was hard. It was difficult. But as they worked through it, you saw how God blessed them. And the walls went up in Jerusalem, which had been down for many, many years. So we want to begin with a word of prayer before I forget. And so is this PowerPoint set to go? Oh, man, fancy like that. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you again for this wonderful evening, Lord. You brought us together. And we thank you for those that have come. And as you know, it's been a day at the work, and sometimes we're very tired. So I pray, Lord, that you reinvigorate them, give them energy, open their hearts and minds to hear what you have to tell them, Lord, as you want to encourage them, to bless them, to equip them. As we know, coming to the church is to be equipped to serve you, to go out where you have them here in El Paso, Horizon City. Lord, just use them in a mighty way to take the gospel message, Lord. I pray again, Lord, you just speak through me tonight, that your words would be spoken and not my own. And I ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen. I'm going to move this Bible. So as we look at Nehemiah chapter 3, it's all about work. You guys like that? And some of you guys like, we've been working to get this place going. We want to hear about work, but it's a lot of work. It talks about how individuals, they pitched in and they did the work together. And I believe that's how this got done. And sometimes it's a few, and sometimes it's a lot, but you do it faithfully unto the Lord, right? And so all this was coordinated and led by Nehemiah, as God had placed upon Nehemiah's heart, go back to Jerusalem. And he prepared the way for him. And I don't want to keep comparing it to here, but really it's perfect for you guys. As God draws you all the way out, I say all the way out to Horizon City. It's not too far from where you're from, but from Las Cruces, I thought, man, am I going across the whole Texas to get here? But it's a blessing to come. So we see in chapter 3, the work begins. And we see people here that as we go through chapter 3, we're going to see specific people on specific parts of the wall. As they're part of the wall, they were repairing it. And it's somewhat of a painstaking chapter, and yet there are great, excellent lessons within this chapter, tucked away. And anything that I've learned when I first began to teach, I was like, this is easy. No. Mike's like, what are you talking about? When I would first begin to teach, you could see something on the very surface. I'm like, wow, I got it. But what you had to do is read, study more, and you go deeper. And that's where the golden nuggets were. And I realized I got to put more efforts into this studying. And we're actually going through the book of Romans, and, it's a difficult book, but it's a great blessing. I actually had to spend 12 hours at least was it the week before? I can't even remember anymore. But Romans chapter 9, if you guys know anything about Romans chapter 9, it's like one of the hardest chapters in the book. But it was a great blessing. So what I'm saying is you need to continue to dig deeper to see what God has in there for you. As we look at this chapter, there are 38 men listed, and they're listed in different locations. And they usually work close to their homes, repairing the wall, where the work needs to begin. You guys realize that, right? The work has to begin at home. Because if it doesn't work at home, it won't work at all. You guys know what I'm saying? It's like when you're at home, it's hard to fake it. When you go to church, you can say, hey, brother, hey, sister, and fake it, but at home, you can't hold up that, who you are is going to come out. And so you can't fake that. So it's important to begin at home first, which is actually, in reality, very difficult. And you need God's help to be that husband, that wife, that mom, that dad that you need to be. And let's go ahead and get in this. Nehemiah chapter 3. Let me see if I got this. We're going to look at verse 1. Nehemiah chapter 3, verse 1 says, Eliashib, the high priest, and his fellow priests went to work and rebuilt the sheep gate. They dedicated it and set its doors in place, building as far as the Tower of the 100, and as far as the Tower of Hanel. So we see the work begins, right? If you guys look up here, I'm going to put the map so hopefully you can see that. You can see as I go around, as we travel around the walls as they begin to build it. And the work begins with the spiritual leaders. It begins with the high priests and the priests. They lead the way into the rebuilding. And the reason why we start here, it's critical for leaders to be the example. Leaders need to lead the way. They don't just point and say, that's the way to go. They have to go out first. As I believe your pastor, Mike, does that. He leads. He's, matter of fact, talking about this week, doing the work. And if some leaders, and I'm just put it here, don't let it get out. Are you recording this? It's live? Well, anyway, there's a lot of pastors that don't like to get their hands dirty. But there is a time when, as the church grows, that the pastor has to spend much more time within the studying, because that takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time to get prepared. So not that he doesn't want to do this work. He should be able to. Should be able to go out and do the labor work when it's needed. So what I'm saying is a leader is not above physical labor. When it needs to be done, it needs to be done. It needs to get your hands dirty. Now, if you're a leader, others are going to be watching you. You guys realize that? Or maybe you're not a leader. You watch the leaders. Don't you watch and see how they act and how they live? And as a leader, you have to realize that as they watch you, they're going to follow your example. They're going to watch you very closely. So think about this. If you're slow to work or late to work, they're also going to be slow and late. If you're full of discouragement and doubt, they will follow that example as well. And if you look at a church, it all stems from the pastor down. As he seeks God to guide and direct him, so as you look at him as your spiritual leader. So as we look at this, they begin with the sheep gate. And I'm going to go over these gates. I don't know if you guys, are you guys going over the Old Testament on Thursdays? We used to do that. I got to get back to doing that. We do connect groups now, but I missed the Old Testament. I really miss it, because if you don't understand the Old Testament, you can't understand the New. So we're going to get a little bit detail here, not to get too far. They begin with the sheep gate. The gates in these times, and back in Nehemiah's time, was very critical to entry. There had to be exit points to the city, and places the enemies would attack would be the gates. It had to be very secure. So that's why the work began at each gate, and they worked from there out. As you looked at the walls, in that time, the walls were down in Jerusalem, so there was no protection for those as they were coming back to Jerusalem. They had to fear every day of people coming in, the enemy attacking them. And as you study Nehemiah, you realize the enemy was there and it was alive. They were alive. They didn't want the walls to be rebuilt. They reflected and they knew what God had done with this great city in the past. So we look at the sheep gate. It led to the sheep market where the lambs were sold for the temple sacrifices. If you look at it I'm pointing down here, but if you look at it up there, you can see how close it is to the temple. They would slaughter the sheep and they would take it to the temple. And this was the very gate that Jesus went through as he carried the cross to Golgotha to be crucified. Let's continue on. Let's look at Nehemiah chapter 3, verses 2 through 5. I thought it was a good idea to drink some coffee before, but not so much as you're talking. But let's go ahead and look at verses 2 through 5. It says, the men of Jericho built the adjoining section, and Zaccur, son of Imri, built next to them. The fish gate was rebuilt by the sons of Hassanah. They laid its beams and put its doors, bolts, and bars in place. Meremoth, son of Uriah, the son of Hakos, repaired the next section. Next to Meshullam, son of Barakah, the son of Meshezabel, made repairs, and next to him, Zodak, son of Bana, also made repairs. The next section was repaired by the men of Tekoa, by their nobles, but their nobles would not put their shoulders to the work under their supervisors. Now you get what I'm saying about these names? It's very hard. Did it sound like I knew how to pronounce them? I just try to make it sound like I did. Now, it says the priests. Even the priests restored the wall as far as the fish gate. And then it tells us the son of Hassanah rebuilt this gate, this fish gate. Now, the fish gate is one of the main entrances into Jerusalem where the merchants, they have very practical names. What's the purpose of it? They bring the fish to the market, and oftentimes from other cities and other territories. So after this fish gate was repaired, several different men came together and began to repair these sections. After the gate was fixed and installed, they began to build the walls out. And so this next section led up to the next gate, which is called the Old Gate. And it repaired by the different people, Tekoa people. And it's important to note that not everyone was willing to work. Did you guys notice that? It says the noble, it's kind of a good name for them. The nobleman didn't want to work. They didn't want to yield to the supervisors that Nehemiah had sent. So I like what David Guzik said about this. He says, literally, the idea, the Hebrew word used here is they wouldn't submit. Does that sound like a more modern word? They wouldn't submit. They would not bend their necks, means they would not do what the Lord wanted them to do. And you say that because who sent Nehemiah? God sent Nehemiah to rebuild the walls, but they did not want to submit. So what is the real issue you have here? It's the S word. You guys want to know what the S word is? It's not Superman. Submission. Try that word, submit, and people's hair stand up on the back of their necks. Maybe these nobles thought, well, we have a better plan. Maybe they didn't like the way Nehemiah was doing it. Now think about it though. Before Nehemiah got there, all the walls were down. None of the gates were put up. So why are they complaining? Perhaps maybe they're just lazy. Whatever the reason is, we don't know. You can be sure later they regret it, not putting their hand to the plow, not putting their work in, because God restored the walls of Jerusalem. They couldn't look back and said, so to be part of this church, let me give a modern day example. You can look back and say, I was part of the putting this church together. Not bragging for yourself. God used me in this way, no matter how small or big it was. It's a blessing to be used by God. And when you begin to serve in ministry, it's not about you, it's about being obedient to God, submitting to Him, allowing Him to work in and through you. And this is kind of what I've said the way I became a pastor. If I knew this, I probably never would have said this, but I encourage you to say this. Lord, use me however you want. And that means however He wants. And when you really humble yourself and submit to them, God will work in and through you. And that's what He's looking for, right? He's looking for those that will submit to His authority, and He can work greatly through. So these guys are going to look back and realize, man, we didn't obey God. And so when you don't obey God, you miss out on what He's doing. And then we're in the last days. And many say we're in the last hour of the last days. You guys ever think about that? You ever believe that, hear that? As we look how wicked. Now, I want to tell you something I've been repeating the last week, so I might as well share it with you. You ever hear the saying, someone says, if God does not judge America, he owes Sodom and Gomorrah an apology. You guys ever hear that? Yeah? Well, I always kind of said, yeah, that sounds about right. But what I realized was Sodom and Gomorrah is more wicked than we realized. Think about that. This country, this world is going to get really bad. So we need to be equipped and prepared for that and understand that. God owes no apology. It just means things are going to get really bad before his son returns. And he told us this. But as we look at this issue of not willing to submit, Jesus ran into this problem with his disciples. Do you remember when he did run into that problem? Many times. I want to give you one example. As they see Jesus do miraculous things, as they watch and they see, they begin to argue about who's going to be the greatest in the kingdom. You ever see that within the church? I'm greater than you. I'm going to be this or that. The disciples were no different. I think that the one reason that God picked them is because we can relate to them. How many of you guys relate to Peter? Now, I always would say Peter is about 6'2", 6'4", with this big 23-inch shoe in his mouth. Left me out. And then we watched The Chosen. Messed me up for the rest of my life. He's a little short guy with an attitude. I was like, that's me. I don't like that part. I like the idea of being a big guy that always speaks before he thinks. But let's look at Mark chapter 9, verse 33 to 35, as Jesus is dealing with the disciples saying, I'm going to be the greatest in the kingdom. It says, they came to Capernaum, and when he was in the house, he asked them, what were you arguing about on the road? So Jesus asked the disciples, what were you guys arguing about? He didn't miss it. But they kept quiet because on the way they had argued about who was the greatest. Sitting down, Jesus called the 12 and said, anyone who wants to be first must be very last and the servant of all. He knew what they were arguing about. Even as Jesus was doing these miraculous things, this is how the flesh acts. Well, God, Jesus is going to make me greater in his kingdom. And Jesus confronts them. What are you guys arguing about? Oh, nothing. It's kind of like when the parents catch you fighting with your brothers or sisters. They're like, what are you doing? Nothing. Wasn't doing anything at all. So he calls them on the carpet. He says, if you want to be great in my kingdom, if you want and I want to be great in God's kingdom, we need to be servants of all. And if you look in the world, you look at it like a pyramid. You have like the CEO up here and everyone below them is to serve him. So when you come into the leadership of the church, what you need to do is flip that around. As the pastor's down here, as you go up, you're to serve everyone. The pastor is to serve the people in the church. That's what he's called to do. And every leader, that is your purpose, is to serve the people in God's church. It's the total opposite of the world. Let's continue. Let's look at Nehemiah chapter 3, verses 6 through 12. The Jeshanah gate was repaired by Joadah, son of Pisa, and Mushallam, son of Bosaidiah. They laid its beams and put its doors with the bolts and bars in place. Next to them, repairs were made by the men of Gibeon and Mizpah, Melatiah of Gibeon and Jadon of Maranoth, places under the authority of the governor of the Trans-Euphrates. Uzziah, son of Hariah, one of the goldsmiths, repaired the next section, and Hananiah, one of the perfume makers, made repairs next to that. They restored Jerusalem as far as the broad wall. Rephaniah, son of Hur, ruler of the half district of Jerusalem, repaired the next section. Adjoining this, Jedediah, son of Haramph, made repairs opposite his house. And Hattasa, son of Hashbaniah, made repairs next to him. Malachijah, son of Haram, and Hashub, son of Path Moab, repaired another section of the Tower of the Ovens. Shulam, son of Halahesh, ruler of the half district of Jerusalem, repaired the next section with the help of his daughters. And I'm reading this, I'm thinking, why in the world did I pick this section? Because it applies to you guys. Otherwise, I would have stuck with the New Testament. But listen, he's talking about the Jeshanah gate. It's also known as the Old Gate. And it was situated northwest on the corner identified. Let me see if I got this map up here. Did I actually go? let you guys, I didn't let you guys see that, did I? I'm sorry, I'm not used to this. Well, anyway, you heard me say it, so that was enough. Jeshaniah Gate. You guys have your Bibles? Good, because I might mess up again. So it's actually also called the Old Gate, which is situated in the northwest corner, identified with the corner gate in 2 Kings chapter 14, and also in Jeremiah 31. Now, opinions differ about this gate concerning the term Old Gate, because some believe it was the main entrance into Jerusalem, of the old city. Actually, before Jerusalem, it was called Salem. They believe it was the entrance, so here nor there. But they continue to observe as a building. I'm getting to the point of they're building the walls and gates together. They begin to see the walls going up, beginning with the gates, beginning to be restored. And we begin to observe something that's very inspiring. What is inspiring about this? We see men coming together, along with their daughters, with their family, with everyone there coming together. Can you imagine the church working together? As we look at the Israelites, think about people working together. For us, think about the church working together to restore the gates and the walls near them. What stands out even more is the fact that we see ordinary people restoring the walls. It wasn't their gift to be, maybe they weren't bricklayers, whatever the wall was made out of, stone, whatever. That wasn't their skill, but they were coming together, helping each other. As we help others, there's a great example of us in the church, how we see the goldsmiths. Think about perfume makers. Do you think of perfume makers working on the walls? How about people that paint your nails? I say, yeah, that's the one that's going to be in the nitty gritty. No, I don't want to get my fingernails dirty. Or the goldsmiths used to working with hot metals. It's totally different. But even it says the rulers were laboring to rebuild. This is what you want to see from the top to the bottom. From the leaders to the servant. Everyone was working together. Again, we don't see professional builders or bricklayers. As a matter of fact, when you built this place, there was a lot of people that helped that weren't professional carpenters. You may be looking around and say, yeah, I see that. No, not really. It looks really good. It looks really good. The trim work's what's the most important because you can hide the mess up. But it's amazing how you come together and build things for God's glory. There was no excuse to say, I don't know how. It's not my job. Because when you look to your left, you look to your right, the perfume maker, the goldsmith, you knew it wasn't their job. But they were all laying their hand to the labor that needed to be done. Same goes again with the church as builders of, we're building God's church. Let's forget physically it's needed, but spiritually we're building God's church. Every one of us here, as you come on Sundays, as you come on Wednesdays, you're being equipped to go out into where God has you and proclaim the gospel message. Now you guys realize that's what the church's main purpose is? It's not evangelism. We think our purpose is, the church is to evangelize. Now, what I'm saying is you come to church to be equipped to go out and evangelize. The church itself is to equip you to do that. Not to have Pastor Mike be the only one out on the corners telling people about Jesus. His main job is to study, like you should have this week, right? And studied. I'm just kidding, man. But think about it. It's either one person or it's 10 or 20 or 30. He equips you to go out and proclaim the good news. So everyone is coming to be equipped. They look at it and they see that everyone needed to serve and everyone was serving. We need to seek and ask the Lord. When you're asked to do something in the church, it's not an excuse to say, I don't know how. You ever use that? I don't know how to work with children in the children's ministry. You should sign up for the children's ministry. You want to learn, they'll ask you questions you have no idea how to answer. But it challenges you. But the other point is, Lord, give me that ability. You never know what God's going to bless you with. I've been praying, Lord. No, I haven't been praying. I should be praying, Lord, give me the gift to sing. Because every time I get close to the stage, I don't know what it is. They mute all the mics up there. They don't let me sing. I'm a great singer. You ever drive down the road and you hear yourself singing? It's like I'm right in tune until the radio goes off, and then you hear yourself and you're like, I'm not blessed with the singing ability. But you pray and God will add to the gift set. Each one of us has at least one gift, don't we? Use that to its fullest potential. Wherever God puts you, serve with all your heart unto Him. And then say, Lord, continue to use me however you want. Now, as we look back at this wall, as I have this picture up here, we see about the broad wall. It's more than 20 feet, 6 meters wide. And many critics look at this and they deny the accuracy of the Bible, but archaeologists shovel constantly as they begin to dig. They find, as they continue even today, find artifacts proving the Bible to be true. Matter of fact, many the archaeologists use the Bible to find things. Have you ever heard that? They go to the Bible and they literally follow it and they find artifacts. Let's go ahead and look at the next few verses, 13 to 14. Now the valley gate, it was repaired by, I gotta move this thing. I'm not used to. Okay, here we go. The valley gate was repaired by Hanun and the residents of Zanoah. They rebuilt it and put its doors with their bolts and bars in place. They also repaired 1,000 cubits of the wall as far as the dung gate. The dung gate was repaired by Malachai, son of Rechab, ruler of the district of the other dude's place, and he built it and put its doors with their bolts and bars in place. So, the valley gate, it was led into the Hinnom Valley outside the city walls. And this is the valley where Solomon erected these high places for foreign gods. In these very places, he made these idols, and they children were sacrificed by fire there. It was rendered ceremonially unclean. So we see here by Josiah, when he came in, when a good king would come in, it had to even correct what Solomon did. You ever amazed at Solomon, how God gave him the great wisdom? God can give you gifts, but we have to choose to use them. I'm thinking many times, Solomon, I don't think you used the wisdom God gave you. How many wives did he have? Was it 600 wives? 300 concubines? I'm thinking, really? One is hard enough for me. That is not wisdom there. It says, it became ceremonially unclean. Because of this, it became the garbage dump for the city. This is where all the trash would be dumped, and because of the human sacrifice. And it was given the name Gehenna, or lake of fire. So think about it. This is where the trash would be burned. What a picture. It brings us to the dung gate, the path where all garbage was removed from the city out in the Hinnom Valley. So it gives us a picture of waste, burning, and worthless. That brings us to the next few verses, 15 to 16. The fountain gate was repaired by Shulon, son of Kolahozah, ruler of the district of Mizpah. He rebuilt it, roofing it over and putting the doors and bolts and bars in place. He also repaired the wall of the pool of Siloam by the king's garden as far as the steps going down from the city of David. Beyond him, Nehemiah, son of Azbuk, ruler of the half-district of Beth-zur, made repairs up to a point opposite the tombs of David as far as the artificial pool and the house of heroes. So the fountain gate, if you see here on the picture, you continue to go down and around. This is kind of a remake of what it would look like on the left-hand side. The gate is mostly in ruin today. Have any of you guys been able to go to Israel? If you get a chance to go, it's amazing to see. And you get to, when you go to Israel, I think you guys are planning on going in, but you end up getting this building. You get to see the Bible. I've been several times, and when you went on the Sea of Galilee, when you're reading it and you walk along the beach of the Sea of Galilee, you can picture that. You can see it in your mind's eye as you're reading it. So in essence, you can see the different gates. You're able to see the different gates as you're there. The fountain gate, again, it's the one that's the most ruined. It's so associated with many locations inside the city. Let's continue on briefly here, 17 to 25. This is the one I'm going to have to look at. Next to him, the repairs were made by the Levites. The Levites were even working. Isn't that amazing? They were actually building the walls. Under Rehum, son of Bani, beside him, Hishbiah, ruler of the half-district of Keilah, carried out repairs for his district. Next to him, the repairs were made by the fellow Levites under Benu, son of Hinnom, ruler of the other half-district of Keilah. And next to him, Ezar, son of Jeshua, ruler of Mizpah, repaired another section from a point facing the ascent to the armory as far as the angle of the wall. Next to him, Baruch, son of Zabai, zealously repaired another section from the angle to the entrance of the house of Elishib, the high priest. And next to him, Meremoth, son of Uriah, son of Hakezash, prepared another section from the entrance of Elisheba's house to the end of it. The repairs next to him were made by the priests from the surrounding region. Beyond them, Benjamin and Hushubah made repairs in front of their house and next to them. Azariah, son of Messiah, the son of Ananiah, made repairs beside his house. Next to him, Manu, son of Henadad, repaired another section from Azariah's house to the angle and the corner. And Palas, son of Uzai, worked opposite the angle and the tower projecting from the upper palace near the court of the guard. I know it's probably knocking you out, all these words, but realize I have to say them. But there's a reason here. What we're seeing, listen to these different things. Even who was it? We see the priests. We see even them working. So what we see now is a lot of progress is being made because the work had to be done. So we see everyone coming together. Everyone was working except for a few. And they were working on their sections. You see, each one is given a section. They would work on it. And then the next group would take over and continue to work on it. And they would complete their wall. And Nehemiah was a good organizer. And you need a good organizer. Pastor Mike, you need a good administrator here. Because it takes organization to be an administrator. I tried it. I got worse the more I did it. But it makes perfect sense here. We see the wall was there to protect their homes. But just think about how many years it lay desolate. The wall was laid down until God sent Nehemiah. God sent one person to come among the Jews that had returned to Jerusalem and organize them, and they began to repair their section. And then the next section, and the next section. So they began to see the walls go up. They saw progress being made by their homes. And why by their homes? Because they would take pride. They would know it would protect their own home. So they took pride in that. And so they worked hard and they looked after it. Not only did they help fix it, but they looked after it every day from the enemy. So much progress. So the picture here, after all this, is you see the unity in the body. I believe that's why Satan works so hard to keep the churches fighting against each other. Now we need to work together. Now the foundation beliefs, we have to agree on that. If we can agree on that, churches do things differently, don't they? But if we're able to agree on the basic foundations, then we should work together. But we're so busy fighting with each other. You know there's territorials. Do you realize there's territory? I don't know whose territory you guys interrupted moving here, which you may find out soon. It's like, you're on my corner. You guys ever hear of that? Territories within churches? You guys know what I'm talking about? When we first moved our church out there, you're close to another one. And he said, what's the problem with that? They're like, well, this is my people. Everyone's God's people. Let me give you a visual that I like to use. It's like when you're serving God, think about you're digging a ditch. What would you do if someone jumped in your ditch and with a shovel and said, I want to help you dig? What churches do today is say, get out of this ditch. This is my ditch, right? That's what it means when you say this is my territory. If God puts a co-worker next to you, another church right here, pray for them, help them, work together. But it's Satan that works through our flesh and say, this is my territory. We're not here to build our kingdom. We're here to build God's kingdom. And we need to remember that. Let's move on. Verses 26 to 27. Next to him, Pedaiah, son of Harosh, and the temple servants living on the hill of Ophel made repairs up to a point opposite the water gate towards the east and the projecting tower. Next to them, the men of Tokiah repaired another section from the great projecting tower to the wall of Ophel. So now we see the water gates. You guys can see in that picture there, the water gate as it continued to go around. So you saw where they began. As they continue, they're going around, almost completely rebuilt the walls. And if you guys study Nehemiah, you can see the opposition is watching, and they're not very happy. All through this, there's much opposition. Have you guys experienced any opposition as you guys have moved here? As you've went from every direction. Not only do you have to build, you have the spiritual battle. And sometimes it's not just a spiritual, it's physical battles. I think one of Satan's greatest physical battles he brings is inspections. I used to be an inspector, so I can say that. Some just come there and Satan's like, oh, nitpicking. But you know what? Wherever God leads you, wherever God guides, he will provide. And so we see this gate comes up, the water gate. In the water gate, it's very interesting, the name of it. This was where people would go to hear the word of God, the living word, the water of life. Isn't it interesting how they named it the water gate? But it's, as you look at the pictures, also where it led to the old city of David. It had the Gihon spring was there. That's why it was called, it would bring the water through that gate to supply the needs for everyone within the city. So the temple servants, they as well, they worked and repaired the water gate. Then the Ophel was a south of the temple area between the horse gate. So basically, you continue to see that from gate to gate, the walls in between, and it began to each person continue. This is what this chapter is all about, working together to restore what God has called them to work on. Again, I think I began this as saying it's somewhat laborious, this chapter, but it's worth it as we get through this and be able to look back and see how God brought these so many different people together to serve him and to accomplish something. Again, I don't know how many years it was, many, many years at the wall. Even after they allowed them to go back from captivity, no one was repairing the walls. It took God, you realize that? It took God sending someone, one obedient servant, who was able to rebuild the walls. Let's look at verses 28 to 32. Above the horse gate, the priest made repairs, each in front of his own house. Next to them, Zodak, son of Immer, made repairs opposite his house. Next to him, Shemaiah, son of Scaniah, and the guard of the east gate made repairs. Next to him, Hananiah, son of Shelemiah, and Hunan, the sixth son of Zalph, repaired another section. Next to them, Meshullam, son of Barak, made repairs opposite his living quarters. Next to him, Malchijah, one of his goldsmiths, made repairs as far as the house of the temple servants, and the merchants opposite the inspection gate, and as far as the room above the corner. And between the room above the corner and the sheep gate, the goldsmiths and the merchants made repairs. So now we see the horse gate. It was on the east wall. It may have been, again, practical names where they brought the horses in. The water gate, where they brought the water in. Then they have the east gate. No repairs were mentioned. And the east gate is the gate where Jesus entered Jerusalem from the Mount of Olives. I think I had a picture here of that. Let me see. Can you guys see that? That's the actual picture. See, the Mount of Olives there, it looks down to, and I believe it's also called the Golden Gate. Do you guys notice that gate is bricked up? The Muslims did that. And then they put all these graves out there because if Jesus returns, he can't defile himself, so he will not be able to, even if he gets to the tombs, now the gates are blocked up. Isn't that silly? Jesus is going to come and he's going to split the earth open. He's going to go right in to Jerusalem. Nothing is going to physically, is going to keep him from doing that. So from all this, you might be thinking, hopefully what the point is. I'm going to give you an illustration. Hopefully this will bring it home to you. Imagine you're famished. You guys ever get hungry, especially on Sunday right after service? Hopefully you don't start talking about food. You haven't eaten for several days. You know, it's kind of hard for us in America to realize. You guys ever go days without eating? Usually it's like, if we make it realistic, imagine you skipped lunch. Famished. I told our church, I said, you know what, if you would physically eat the way you spiritually eat, we'd be some skinny people. Because sometimes we don't spiritually eat enough, but physically eat. Or we should spiritually eat like the way we physically eat. We would be really spiritually strong. But imagine you haven't eaten for several days. But thankfully, you've been invited to this banquet. You arrive and you're seated with other guests at this huge, remember, you're famished. We've all been there. You're starving to death and you sit there and there's everything. It's like a buffet in the chocolate fountains where kids don't stick their fingers in it. It's the good ones. It's got all the desserts out there. You can smell it. It's almost like your smell is heightened even more when you're hungry, right? But then you discover there's a serious problem. Your arms will not bend at the elbows. How are you going to get in your mouth? That's torture, isn't it? Well, you can't get the food from the plate to your mouth. And you look around and everyone else has the same problem. Now, there's one way that you're probably thinking, just stick my face in it, eat like a pig, right? Well, but no one got that idea. Each reaches his fork. He gets a mouthful of food on their fork. And with a stiff arm, what do? Reach to the person next to them. And they're able to feed their neighbor. And so the neighbor reciprocates. The first one does it, the next one does it, and the next thing you know, it comes back. It's, oh, my turn. You get to eat. Now that is a rough picture of God's people, how the church should function, serving each other. See the picture? You serve others, and indeed, you're not doing it to come back and help yourself, but it will. You'll be blessed in the same manner by serving others. And it also does something else. It makes you independent on those within the church. And we need to, sometimes it's hard for us to depend on others, and especially men. I'm just going to say it. Sometimes I can do it, I can fix it. I would encourage you to read the instructions first. You guys ever realize I need the instructions after you spent 2 or 3 hours to do it? Matter of fact, we had a playground set come for the church, a new one. You guys ever see that? I saw the nuts and bolts. Thank goodness we had interns, because I looked at it and I just walked away. I'm like, I am not messing with that. I mean, bolts and nuts everywhere. You have to have patience, but you got to work together. The point here, as Nehemiah is trying to teach us, we are many members but one body of Christ. Even your church and our church, we're still part of the same body. And God himself is a Trinity. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit makes, even though there are 3 persons, makes fully God one God. Perfect unity. So his picture is what we need to be as believers. Within the church, you need to be unified in the church. We're not perfect because we're in this flesh, right? We're in this flesh, and we're also in this wicked world. But we need to seek God. Lord, give me the ability to work together. Give me the desire to help feed the person next to me. That's easier said than done, isn't it? Isn't it hard sometimes to humble yourself and help others first? So how do we do it? Why did God include Nehemiah chapter 3 in Scripture? Why in the world did he put it out here knowing that I could not pronounce a single one of these names? Or you as well. There's maybe 1 or 2 of you thinking I could have done better. Probably could. But what does he want us to learn from this? I believe it's to show us how important of working together. Working together for what? To accomplish God's purpose. They were building the wall for God's purpose because Nehemiah was in Jerusalem because God sent him. The wall was not getting built by itself. Without God in it, it was laying there in ruin. The city remained unprotected. And because it was unprotected, it wasn't flourishing. Why? Because thieves would always come in. Murderers, thieves, destroy things. But together, the wall went up all the way around the city. Again, the importance of this section, this chapter, is to show how important it is for us to work together. To accomplish God's purpose, we need a common vision. We need dedicated leaders, willing workers to do their part. So each and every one of you have a part to play. And if you're here at this church, this is your home church, you're here for a purpose and for a reason. You need to find out what your gift is. I could ask you, do you know what your gift is? Maybe some of you would say, I don't know. And for many years, I didn't know what mine was. What I encourage you to do, begin to serve. Find out where the need is. Begin to serve. And then God revealed to you. For example, I went into children's ministry. It didn't take me long to realize that was not my gift. So I moved on. But I served as needed. We should be able to serve wherever it is in the church. And even when you find out what your gift is, sometimes you won't use it right away. Just be obedient to God. So remember what I said at the very beginning. Just tell God, use me however you want. Help me be the one that unifies the church. Because the church can fight and argue about the dumbest things. I was going to say about the carpet, but Mike took care of that. Many churches split because of the color of the carpet. I can't believe you didn't pick this color or that color. But it's not about our kingdom. Remember, we're building God's kingdom. With that, I'm going to end this section. Hopefully I didn't torture you too much. I tortured myself, to be honest with you. Next time I'll teach New Testament with simple words. But it popped in my head when Mike told me about coming and teaching is that God had brought you here. He's building. He's going to do something amazing. Be patient. It's going to be hard. Do you think as you go, I encourage you, go back and read over Nehemiah. It was not easy. They had to begin to work with a trowel in one hand and a sword in the other. You guys remember that? They had to be on their alert at all times. So as God is moving, the enemy's going to attack you. Be ready for that. Be spiritually ready. Be in prayer. So let's stand as we end. I'm not really sure. I forgot to ask you how you guys end. I'll end in prayer. Would you guys like to stand with me? We'll end in prayer. What? Well, I'm going to end in prayer, and then you guys can sing. And then you can sing a song. Heavenly Father, I just thank you for this evening. I pray, Lord, as difficult as it was to pronounce these words, and you have a purpose for this chapter. Those that are here tonight, you brought him here for a purpose and for a reason, to hear the call to unify, to work together, to serve and glorify you. So I pray, Lord, that your words were heard, your words were spoken first and foremost. And I pray, Lord, those that need to be encouraged, they are encouraged, knowing that you are at work here. And not just here in this building, but on their hearts and in their lives. Lord, I thank you. And I just ask you to bless everyone here and go before them and continue to give them the strength as the enemy will come to stop, to come against them as they're serving you, building your kingdom, Father. And we ask all this in Jesus' name.
Over for the things that go according to our plans, right? We can still get our shape again. We all fix the things that we get. Things don't go according to our plans. Still go according to our plans. Rather than being accused of being wrong. If you're in that place right now where you do not have a relationship with Christ, just really think about that tonight. What is your relationship with Christ? You found yourself in a place where your relationship with Christ is not where you need to keep him out, or you think it's keeping out of Christ, you think it's keeping out of Christ, because you know, yeah, that's the way you need.
Let your love run over here and now. Let your glory fill this house. Pour it out. Let your love run over here and now. Let your glory fill this house. Let your love run over here and now. Let your glory fill this house. Pour it out. Let your love run over here and now. Let your glory fill this house. Tongues of fire, dying of the sun, one desire. Spirit come, seek revival. Prophesy like it is done, one desire. Spirit come, the fire, testifying of the the Son, one desire. Spirit come, Spirit come, speak revival. Prophesy like it is done, one desire. Spirit come, Spirit come. Pour it out. Let your love run over. Here and now. Let your glory fill this house.